Welcome to Mastering Local Marketing. My name is Matt Hansen, and today we are discussing how we can turn your expertise into a marketing power. So, every local business has a story worth telling, and yours could be the one your community needs to hear. Podcasting has become one of the simplest ways to share your expertise, build credibility, and connect with customers on a deeper level. Whether you run a retail shop, a restaurant, or a local service business, your knowledge can position you as the go-to expert people turn to advice, insight, and solutions. In this episode, we're going to explore how podcasting has evolved into a powerful marketing strategy that levels the playing field for small businesses. You no longer need expensive equipment or a professional studio to make an impact. With today's tools, you can record from anywhere, publish within minutes, and reach listeners who are already interested in what you do. Today we are sitting down with our mastering local marketing producer.
Good morning, everyone. Yes, so I'm usually back there in the fishbowl.
Yep.
So now I'm here on under the lights, put on the spot,
Put on the spot, right?
basically.
So
How we
we
do
are
our
going to
job.
talk everything that you do with the
hmm
podcast network. So um, let's lead up to this. So people are probably sitting at home going, "Oh, this is such a process. I don't know where I would even
Yeah.
begin." Right? Like there's so much to it. And I always tell the story because, Purdue guy, I was watching the Purdue basketball game in March Madness when they
hmm
lost, unfortunately, last year, and I sat down and in the time that the game went on,
hmm
I sat down with AI tools and created a cover, created an idea, created a script, created the personalities, used AI to actually voice it, and we launched a podcast in that
Yep.
time, right? And it was funny because it was just a test. It was like, can we possibly do this just using AI in the small amount of time that a basketball game goes on? And we did it. And it's still out there today. It's called Half Baked Crime Stories. And
I don't
it's,
think I ever heard the name of that. It's
right?
actually kind of
Yeah.
funny.
So it was basically we took articles on stupid criminals.
Okay.
The podcast cover was developed using AI, so it's this criminal standing
hmm
in front of kind of the height backdrop, 6 foot, 5 foot, all that. He has two black eyes, and we wanted it to be very childish. So remember the little magnetic colored letters that you played with as a
Yes.
kid? That's how the name is written out. And then we used just two names, Riley and Alexis, and then we found last names. Basically said, don't give us kind of an out of the ordinary last name.
Okay.
Gave it both of those. Then I said, here are 5 stories on the web. Develop 1,500 words of commentary between these two people, and I want it to be snarky, right? Like
hmm
they're making these little
They're
sarcastic
making fun.
jokes as they're going through it. Then we utilized AI
hmm
voices, and we uploaded it, and it was done before the game was up. So I went to bed that night, and I woke up the next morning, and 2 people had already listened to it. And I was just like, "Oh goodness!" Right? So we did 2 episodes just as a test to say that we could do it. Now I'm not saying you should go out and do that because you can still kind of hear the AI part of
yeah,
it
you
in
can
there.
tell.
But from the standpoint of where we are today, you deal with a lot of people that are doing podcasts. I mean,
Yes.
how many show? You probably have a couple of handfuls at
We
this
have
point.
15,
Okay.
and we're hoping to get our next two to make it 17.
hmm
So we're just kind of waiting on to see if they sign on with us or not. But we have quite a few, and they are all recorded differently
Right.
as well. So we have some that are here in studio. We have some that people go out, they record it, and then they give us back the audio, or it's just taken from our shows.
Okay. So if again, we're talking about this being a marketing
hmm
effort. So when we look at the people that are out there and you're recording content,
hmm
everybody has their own unique expertise, right? So we're on
Yes.
here. You don't have any other marketing podcasts. This is kind
No,
of the only
you're the one and only.
We're the one and only, and I share 20 plus years, 25 plus years at this point of marketing that we've gone through. We've had all of these things happen in the past. We know
hmm
what's happening today. But let's say we have a small like interior designer or a restaurant, what are some of the content? Like, what are some of the things that they could be out there doing?
When it comes to podcasting, any kind of small business and or restaurant, if they want to approach podcasting and don't kind of know how, or maybe a lot of people have the impression that what if my business is not, like, we don't have enough content to make a podcast. We talk about it for maybe 30 minutes every so often. And from there, it's more so like, yes, here's your business. Here is everything that you do, but then also the storytelling aspect of it is what drives people in. Because when selling a product, you need a story with it. You need to be able to get the customer engaged and to say why they should have this product. Why should they connect with you? So I would say first make sure that not only, yes, you have the product, but you have a storyline with it. So for a restaurant, if somebody is, for instance, if you're a first generation from your parents and everything, and you open up this restaurant, that's a story right then and there that you can sell on your you can sell your restaurant on a podcast, and then you can say that how all the recipes are from generations beforehand, and you're just here trying to share their story. There you
Right.
go.
So what we're saying is you find your audience, the audience, whether it's your customers or whether it is other businesses just like you.
Somewhere like a target market.
Right. So let's say it's customers and you're sharing things. Let's go back to the restaurant, right? So I'm doing a podcast. Doesn't matter how long it is. It could be 5 minutes. It could be an hour
That's
and a
the best
half.
part about podcasts.
You could have any amount of time. But I'm a restaurant. I'm having these conversations about how or why we started the restaurant, how our customers are important, what we put into what goes on behind the scenes, the things that you don't see, right? So we've talked about the bear on here before, and you see kind of the chaos that's happening, and they put the window, and you can see, right, all these different things, but you get to know the company itself, or you get to know the owner or the chef themselves, and you become kind of the centralized figure of your business. So I say this a lot, whether we're talking about just placing digital ads or it's a podcast, is that you need to become the face of your business. So when people see you, you're out pumping gas, somebody pulls up and you're like, hey, you're Matt Hansen from the Matt. Nobody does that, but
not yet. We got to get you. We got to get you more downloads.
Not yet, but that's what I mean. Like, you start to become the face of your business, and people relate to the stories that you're telling. And it doesn't have to be something that is out there on Apple or Spotify, right? Like, you can actually do recordings and do an audio podcast and just put it on your website even. So if you don't want to go all in, and which really all in is not that hard.
Yeah,
in putting
just
it out
hit
there.
a couple buttons.
Couple buttons and, you're up and going. But if you just say, I just want to create content that I can speak to my audience, and maybe you're putting those audio files through your website, and then you're sending an email out every so often. Doesn't have to be weekly, doesn't have to be daily. It could be monthly, it could be every couple months, whatever it may be. But you're becoming the expert. You're telling the stories of your business, and it relates to people. Right? And so you've got a bunch of different podcasts, and they all have different, you've got everything from, local veterans to politicians to, you name it. They're all over the board. And everyone has their own unique stories that they're telling. What would you, if somebody's thinking about starting something like this, walk them through that process. I know it's not that hard, but walk them through that process of where they would need to go. What would they need to do?
For us, what we do is usually people come with us and they either already have an idea in the works, or they want our opinion on how they should kind of spin it to where they have enough content to talk about. Because that's the main thing, is that people are worried that they don't really have enough, and then we put the headsets on, put them in front of a camera, and they go on for an hour and they don't even realize it because it goes by that fast. But usually we tell them at first, what's the idea? What's the story? What's your audience? And we go from there. Once they figure out those things, we ask them, okay, do you have a show name? What would you talk about during these times? And typically we ask to whatever their length is, whether it's 5 minutes, whether it's an hour, then we ask them, okay, how many episodes are you thinking? Some people, like for instance, this podcast, it's every week, 2 episodes every week, because there's so much to talk about within this area. Others, they'll do once a week, or they will do every other week, once a month, however much they want to do. And it's just based on how long they go and what the content is. So after we go through that, we ask them, okay, well, we need a graphic. We need something that can make people recognize that. So for instance, if you think like any kind of like candy bar, mainly people are going to probably think like Hershey's, because that's the main candy bar you're going to see everywhere. So that's kind of like how we look at graphics. That's the graphic that's going to be your podcast. It's yours and yours only. We go from there. We go, okay, well, we need a description. How are people going to know what you're talking about? Then it comes in the titles and the descriptions per episode. So from there, you already have a general foundation for your podcast. And then now you just put in the contents. And from there, usually we have 5 ready to go.
So when I sat down with you guys to start this podcast, Jim had told me, he's like, you got to at least do 20. And of course, I told him 100 in the first year. And here we are on episode 82, right? So, again, there's no predetermined amount that you need to do. But I will tell you, and you can attest to this, that if you go to 20, most people have stopped by then.
Yes. Usually they do, or they don't do it as often.
Right. So I think, if you're going to do something like this, it's how committed will you be? And quite honestly, there's not a lot that goes into it. We sit down every single week and we come up with two episodes. And, again, you could come up with 1 episode every month. But instead of just thinking about, I'm going to do a podcast, I think you mentioned it earlier with the target market. Like, what does your customer base want from you? So, we've talked about the home decor shop that we had years ago. And the number one thing that people, like, we should have, back then, we would have created a podcast with our manager at that point. Because people would come in and want to talk, his name was Ed. People would want to come in and talk to Ed about his decorating because he was phenomenal, right? Like, he could make whatever. And people would want to bring him into their home and walk through, and he would tell you all these different things. So he became kind of the celebrity of the store. And it was funny because, like, they wouldn't want to talk to me. They wouldn't want to talk to anybody. They wanted to talk to Ed, and which is fine because I had no decorating knowledge whatsoever. But Ed became the local expert in the store. So you may have that in your place as well, but this could be home decorating, it could be cooking tips, it could be cleaning tips, it could be, I think you have a couple different people, like
we have some that are like Calumet painting. We have the hospice of the Calumet area, veterans, and all the morning shows. They have podcasts of their own. And some of them, yes, they are. A lot of the majority go into the politics because that's what drives people in. You're going to get that controversy, and everybody likes that kind of aspect. But then also it's storytelling, too. Today on the morning show, we were just talking about different things. And with one thing, we're talking about Halloween memories that we have just throughout the years. And then, of course, we go into the politics a little bit. But that Halloween segment, that's a podcast in its own. Yeah. So you can get a bunch of different kind of areas that you want your audience to listen to, and some of them are here for the painting tips, some are here to hear what hospice has to say, for the storytelling, for the politics. Everybody has their own little things, and they all, one thing I like is that they all kind of overlap each other, right? So that's one thing to have in its variety in that sense.
So let's shift gears a little bit here. With podcasting, how much money have we spent to promote Mastering Local Marketing?
Actually,
from an ad dollar perspective.
We've
spent zero, right?
Yeah, we haven't spent any money.
So
we just say it on the air.
But how well has the podcast done?
Actually, we broke one of our little records that we have when it comes to downloads. So we exceeded over 500 downloads, and our original target that we had was around 450, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So last month we exceeded that 500 downloads. So now it's like, okay, well, we got to 500. Now we got to get to 1,000.
Right.
And usually with this podcast in particularly, we have at least 20 downloads every single day.
Right.
And from there, we do the digital ad insertion, and that gives us just a little bit of money. You almost have enough for a coffee. I'm letting you know that right now. But you will see a lot more growth when you have 100,000 downloads every month. But it's a slow climbing, and we see the analytics, we see everything happening in there, and it's kind of cool to see it grow slowly and then wait for that one moment where it's just going to rise entirely.
So the cool thing about it is, right? So they're not huge numbers. We don't expect them to be huge numbers right now.
Not right now.
We're just starting. We're getting things going. But what we have noticed is consistent uptick, right? So when you look at the analytics, it's growing.
Yes.
We've touched most, if most.
You're almost
states
you're almost in all 50 states.
right?
I think you're missing about maybe 10 of them.
I think it's the out west is kind of where California is really big, but you get kind of into the mountain areas, and that's where things.
Yeah, talk about cowboys.
But what I'm trying to get at here is, with podcasting, SEO is huge.
That's your main thing that you need.
So what we've identified is we went after the keyword local marketing. And if you type in local marketing into Apple, we'll pop up number one, right? And basically what we're doing is we're identifying certain keywords, and we're building the podcast to that. So we have successfully already accomplished goal number one, and that was to be the number one podcast in local marketing.
Yes.
Right? So now we're looking at it from other keywords. And what we're noticing is the more work that we do on it, the more that we look at titles and descriptions and the content that we're putting out there, that we don't have to spend money to get more listeners, and that the platforms are actually going to help you drive more traffic back to listening to you. So again, it takes time. No one should think that they're going to launch a podcast and 100,000 people are going to be listening to them tomorrow.
Unless you have 100,000 friends and you go, hey, everybody, just click on it.
Exactly. So, but we're talking from a small business, local marketing perspective. You share it with your friends, you share it with your customers, they start to listen, they share it with others, and you start to expand across the world. I mean, again, Jim talks about our Australian viewers all the time. We are in, we're across Europe, we're across Asia,
Yep.
we're
You guys are moving around the globe.
we're all over. So, you get a lot of people that are listening, and we thank you all for listening. But what we're saying is it has some extreme SEO benefits along the way. So we'll continue to grow. I think in the last, we'll call it month, we've seen a jump just with our SEO and what we're doing. So that's really kind of fun. But there's another thing that we talk about on here, and it was the biggest thing that I had coming into it. Like, I've got 25 years of marketing experience, and Jim's always like, oh, Matt Hansen. And I'm still, to this day, still have that imposter syndrome. Like, I'm just an individual that has had.
You're just here, yeah.
I'm just a guy, I have this experience. But most people don't get into it because they have that imposter syndrome. And they think, oh, well, nobody wants to listen to me. And I've heard some pretty bad podcasts out there that have been around for a long time.
And they are like in the millions.
Yeah.
And they're still going.
And they're still going, right? So I think you have to give it a try. You have to see, is it something that I want to do? And you have to get past that imposter syndrome. Okay, so just to kind of wrap up what we're talking about, it's very easy to get into. SEO, search engine optimization, is really easy because there are really two kind of platforms that people are listening. It's Apple and Spotify.
Apple, Spotify are our number one, and then we're going to see a lot of different ones. I know Amazon and iHeart are the next two that come up with it, but as you're correct, Apple and Spotify are the main ones.
And if you play with those, if you start to look at your competition in there, you can actually manipulate the SEO on there, which is what we're doing. Okay, so what kind of tools does somebody need to start a podcast?
So the only tool you really need to start a podcast is just your phone. Everybody has something on their phone that they can record their voice with, regardless if it is just your camera. I know on iPhone it's voice recorder, something to be able to have an MP3 file. Now you can convert that however you need to post wherever you need. And then you just need a platform. Now you can post on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, all of these different platforms, and it's free. You don't have to pay a single penny to do that. Now, the program that we use is Libsyn. Now, with Libsyn, there is a fee to pay, but with that fee, it includes all of the analytics, every single place that a podcast can go. And that automatically publishes it for you, so you don't have to go from, okay, go on to Apple, publish my podcast, go on to Spotify, publish my podcast. It does it automatically for you, and it gives you that range that you may not have thought of. There's a couple podcast platforms on there that we're not familiar with, but then at another point in time we thought that might be a different podcast in a different country platform. So it gets us to those areas that we didn't think of at first. It gives you the ad insertion, and it gives you all those different things. And it's generally around from that $5 to $30 range, however much you want to go. But that's just because we have more than 5 podcasts to deal with. If we didn't have more than 5 podcasts, then we'd probably just go individually and take the time to do it. And from there, it's preferably if you have something to edit with. Now, there's a bunch of free editing softwares out there. We use Adobe on ours because we use that to not only do stuff here in the studio, but also for our sports network. So we have those tools to use. But something to record your voice, to cut up your audio, and then something to where you can publish it. So you can do that through your phone, computer, whichever one you please. And if you want to go as far, you can create graphics, you can create the different descriptions, all that stuff. It's just how, as you said, how dedicated you want to be. But honestly, all you need is just your phone and a good chunk of time to be able to say, okay, here's what we're going to talk about, and then continue on.
Yeah, and it's funny. People walk by my office, and I've got a little studio set up in there. At this point, I've got the microphone,
Yes.
and it's like the boom, and all the stuff. But it really just comes down to having something to get that MP3, and then having the ability to upload it. So
And then, like later on, if you like it, how you said, just make your own little studio.
Yeah.
A microphone and a headset. At this point, they're making them to where I know when we did, before working here, we would do interviews for school. So we got the $25 little lapel mics, and those work almost as well as our headsets here.
Right.
And it's kind of crazy how well technology is advancing, and it's just in the palm of our hands.
Right. We were talking about the $5 clip-on microphone that my daughter got at
Yes.
Five Below a couple episodes ago. But okay, so again, microphone, some kind of way to get the audio. A lot of people are doing video podcasts at this point, and putting them on YouTube and such.
That's that's what we do, because I will say when I'm listening to podcasts, I like to see the people's reactions. I like to see if they say, okay, so here's a graphic, and they show it on the screen. Whereas I know some others like to listen to the podcast and they go about their daily lives, but it's in their ear so they can hear it.
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, I listen to all of my podcasts. So when I'm listening to them, they're covering things in video form, and I have no idea what they're looking. So
It's either that or like somebody, if it's like a comedy podcast, they'll tell a joke and there's silence.
Yeah.
So then you're like, okay, did my phone die? Did something die? But it's in video, you could see like, oh, it's their reaction. They're reacting.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So if somebody were interested in launching a podcast, how would they get in touch with you?
So if you are interested in launching a podcast, I realize which camera I'm looking at here. If you're interested in launching a podcast, you can contact me at Adrianna, ADRIANNA, at WJOB1230.com. From there, I'm the main contact to do the podcast. And it's kind of crazy how you're saying imposter syndrome. And people are like, oh, you run a whole podcast network? I'm like, I hit a couple buttons and here we are.
Well, you
But
run a podcast network, and you're a senior in college.
Senior in college. We're not even graduated yet. But yeah, if you want a podcast, get in contact with me, and or just call the studio and they'll leave a message for me, and we'll get you started on your podcast.
Sounds good. That is episode 82. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, see you.